You always wonder, like, hey, this thing's going to work, right? So, hey, it's Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. Here we are. It is exactly the middle of January. It's January 15th, 2021, the new year, right? So, a lot of you know, Michael and I have been doing content together on Friday mornings, talking about mostly financial news, but all things kind of real estate as it relates to financial news. And of course, we have my partner here, Adrian Hernandez. How you doing, Adrian?
Yeah, I'm alive, excited, full of energy. Nonetheless, excited to be on the call, guys. Excited to learn something new today. So, Michael, you're gonna have to excuse me. I told Ty earlier I had too many cups of coffee, bro. So I'm, if I get going, I may keep going.
You can lead it, actually, and it's interesting. Normally we do these as Zoom recordings, so Michael and I will just do them. They're fast takes. We do them. We don't edit them. We just push them out. But because now we're doing streaming on our Squad Up Wednesday afternoon calls, the stream that we do on Wednesdays at noon, I thought it'd be appropriate for us to just stream this. By the way, if you are a part of the Squad Up community and you're watching this, we want to make sure this is background noise. You can watch this and dig in later. If you're prospecting and doing your phone follow-up and all that, make that a priority. So this is not meant to be a distraction at 10 a.m. So let's just get into it, Michael. Let's talk about interest rates. I know there was some concern about the 10-year. Talked a little bit about it on your financial news. What are you seeing right now in interest rates with residential mortgage?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I want to highlight, and we'll get into what's happening today with interest rates. When I looked at 2021, way back, 2 weeks ago on January 1st, I said the most important variable, like if I only had one thing, it would be the 10-year note. And at the time, the 10-year note was trading at about 0.91. It went up an eighth of a point on January 6th and has since gone up another eighth of a point. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but I think it should at least be appreciated because the trend has reversed, right? Basically, the story was, and again, if you're a real estate agent, right, the longer your buyers kind of waited, the better interest rates got, right? This is the first time where if they were talking interest rates with a broker in December, and if they called back today, the rates will likely be higher or points would be higher, right? Sometimes you could pay points and you get the same rate, all of that. But basically, as my brokers told me, and he's texted me twice in the last 7 days going, oh my God, they're up an eighth, right? And that hasn't happened for, years. So it's something to watch out for. We'll see if it's a long-term trend. Biden, I know it'll be another topic, just talked about another stimulus package of 1.9 trillion. That sounds like a lot of money. Where is this going? So as rates rise, payments go up. If rates rise too fast, it will slow real estate to a crawl. But if they go slow, my history says it actually pulls demand forward. So if I was a real estate agent, I would get very comfortable with hey, you know what? 30-year rate was this on December 31st. It's this on January 15th. It's probably higher. And then translate that into payment. If you're working in a 600K market, it's $117 a month. And I'm just making this up. But that's what I would be doing as a real estate agent. The trend changed. You as a real estate agent need to be talking about why that impacts your buyers. And oh, by the way, if this goes on for too much longer, some buyers will not qualify, right? Debt service, all of that. I don't think we're there yet. But again, man, anytime the trend reverses up or down, it catches my attention. And I think it just changed.
Love it.
That's good. It's interesting. So when we're looking at that, I understand we understand the interest rates. Michael, my question to you is, what numbers are you looking at every single day that's helping the relation to that?
Well, really, for me, it is the 10-year note, right? So right now, the 10-year note's trading at about 1.16. And I'm watching key levels. Like some people are talking about 1.3 being another key level, 1.5. For me, it's 2%. The number's 2. If the 10-year goes to 2% sometime this year, I believe that will be enough, because that's 100 basis points. I believe that will be enough to take 30-year interest rates into the threes, probably mid threes from the mid twos. And again, in a high price state like California, that could be enough to really slow down real estate. So the magic number for me is 2 on the 10-year treasury.
Interesting. I did see something on Keeping Current Matters where they talked about the NRA saying the NAR saying that they're going to the NRA. That's the second time I've done that. This, by the way, second time. The NAR says that they're going. We should anticipate them going to 3.1 to anywhere between 3.1 to 3.5%. Not too sure if you guys saw that on Keeping Current Matters. I did see that a couple of days ago. So, and that I didn't even know about the 10-year what you were talking about. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So again, just so we keep everybody on par, right? I talk 2%, 10-year. You're talking 3 1/8. 3 and whatever, 3/8. That's the 30-year, right? Just so people don't mix them up.
Correct.
Yes, there's absolutely a correlation, right? Because what the Fed controls the Fed fund rates. That's very early in the cycle. It's overnight lending, right? And then the 30-year mortgages are really not really pegged, but influenced by the 10-year. That's why the 10-year is so important. Like, I don't remember a time ever, and I'm sure it's never happened, but I don't want to be that declarative, where the 10-year is above the 30-year mortgage. That just wouldn't make sense, right? The 10-year is paying 4%, but the mortgage is 3.5%. That wouldn't make sense. Banks would lose money.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you, Michael, for that. It's interesting too, Michael. I did catch a little piece of you have a mortgage broker, mortgage banker that you do a show with recurring. Mm-hmm. What day is that you do that show?
I think that's Tuesdays at 9:30.
Tuesdays at 9:30, and I did catch a small piece of that. The interesting thing is he was talking about buying down rates. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think is really cool, because this will plug for next week. Next week, same time, 10 a.m. It'll also be recorded. We're going to have Barry Habib on. And Barry Habib, for a lot of the real estate professionals, you may be familiar with that name. I know if you're in the mortgage world, if you're a mortgage originator, if you're in mortgage banking, brokering, you know Barry Habib. He's somebody that is very in tune and has a strong opinion and direction. You guys mentioned that a little bit this last show, right? Talking about Barry's.
Yeah, it's definitely he's definitely an influencer in the mortgage market, and it's interesting because we're worried about inflation on this call. And Barry's name came up, and it'd be great to talk to him next week, because he's like, guys, you might be wrong. It might be deflation, right? Deflation might come out at you. And man, if we get deflation when we've just printed, $7-8 trillion, that could be a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about deflation, inflation, also this week you had one of the shows where you talked about inflation, but specifically hyperinflation. Mm-hmm. Bring us up to speed on that conversation.
Yeah, so I have a lot of, as the channel grows, I'm attracting more and more great comments, and people come with their history, their experience, their thoughts, which is awesome. And I have some folks that are under the strong opinion that in the U.S. we're going to see hyperinflation like Germany did back in the day. And I just have to get it out there, right? I think we could absolutely have inflation. I think we could have inflation that dwarfs what the Fed wants. The Fed wants 2%. I think we could easily double that. And that would be a concern, because if anybody remembers, what happened to interest rates in the 80s, they were in the teens, right? When you hear your mom and dad, oh, my mom and dad, they had a 19% mortgage. That's because inflation was running, ahead of itself. So there is absolutely a chance that the inflation gets ahead of itself, and that the Fed is forced to abandon low rates, which will have huge trickle effects, because we have these 20 some odd trillion dollars in debt, and all of these other problems could happen. But I think we've proven historically, as long as we're the reserve currency of the world, that we can beat back inflation by just raising rates. Today in a money market, you're getting less than 1%. If we had inflation running at 4 or 5%, you would see money market rates go up. You would see savings be rewarded. You would see debtors penalized. So I appreciate as an economist that hyperinflation is an outcome. It is in the realm of possibilities. I just don't think it's likely. And most importantly, I don't think it's likely in this crisis. I think we may be sowing the seeds of hyperinflation in the next crisis, right? With $27 trillion in debt and all these other things. But in the short term, in the crisis that we are all in and exiting shortly, I don't see hyperinflation is a possibility within the next 4 or 5 years. Inflation, stronger inflation than the Fed wants, absolutely. And then next week we will have a conversation about deflation, because that conversation on Tuesday kind of punched me in the nose. I'm like, maybe I'm too biased. Maybe I'm too biased towards inflation given all the money printing. But damn, what would happen if deflation happened? And again, deflation is possible, right? Because again, we have had record number of money in savings, and money being printed is not inflationary. Money spent is inflationary, right? And right now our currency isn't moving in the system like it used to. So, again, I got punched in the nose on Tuesday. I'm like, shoot, maybe I'm too biased. I still believe, again, following the consumer for 20 years, we're going to come out spending like gangbusters in 3 or 4 months. But, I will appreciate, I think deflation is more of a risk than hyperinflation, if you want to get a feel for it.
Strong.
Interesting. Very good. And I guess I'm I'm confused on why would we see deflation? When we see the cost of everything going up, how would that occur?
Well, basically it occurs when people stop spending, right? So for example, right, if everybody was too scared they didn't start shopping, they didn't spend, they only bought necessities, and our savings rates kept going up and up and up and up, you could be deflationary, right? Because again, some of the inflation we're seeing today is not demand driven, it's actually supply constrained, i.e. 2x4s and 4x4s in real estate. Why is there a problem? Where there was a huge fire in California. It took out 90 days worth of inventory. The pipeline never got going. It's just started up now. That will eventually work itself out where a 2x4 comes down, right? Or a 4x4 or whatever it is. So a lot of the inflation we're seeing today is because of supply constraints. Chips. The other thing that drives me crazy is Honda, Mercedes, and Hyundai have had to slow car manufacturing because chips aren't available. That's a problem. Like, what's going on? How can Silicon Valley chips not be available for GPS and all these other things that are going into cars? That's because the pandemic is causing shifts to start and stop and supply to be, it's just the supply chain that used to be just in time now is all screwed up because inventory is showing up at different times, at different quantities, and whoever is going to assemble it's out because they're sick. And our supply chains, who are used to be the strength of the industry, are really discombobulated today. But I think most of that works itself out. And then if supply increases and our buying hasn't started, then that prices will drop. So something to watch. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And it makes total sense about the supply, because you're right. Like no one's making, for instance, look at what most people are buying. I'm here in the harbor, so they're not making new boats, and these boats are insane. They're going for $80,000 more than from what they were doing a year ago. But that's because they can't go out and buy a new one. I mean, very good, Michael. So good. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Let's talk about stimulus. I know that this week Biden announced, I believe it's 1.9 trillion. I know we talked about that pre-roll before the show. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, so first and foremost, let's acknowledge that it's a proposal, right? The 3.3 CARES Act, the $900 billion that was already approved by Trump, those are done. This 1.9 is Biden's proposal. He's negotiating early, right? He's letting the Senate and the House know what's coming, because he wants to make this a day one activity. Good for him. He should do that. Good for him. When I look at it again, I have kind of all the numbers here. It's a lot of money, right? And it's 5% of GDP on top of what we spent 7 or 8% last year, right? It's a lot of money. So as an economist, as somebody who worries about the strength of the dollar, I'm nervous. But then I look at what they're doing, right? They're going to give $1,400 on top of the $600 for the 2K total. They're going to goose unemployment from 300 extra to 400. I got it all written down. One of the things to talk about is minimum wage. They're talking about taking that to $15. It doesn't really affect California, but it does affect lots of states. They're extending the eviction and foreclosure moratorium till September, giving out $350 billion to states, $170 billion to K through 12, $50 billion for testing, $20 billion for vaccines, $30 billion for rental assistance. It's It's a lot of stuff. And the biggest takeaway from my week of talk with experts is this fact. We have spent a lot of money in the US. We have actually spent more as a part of GDP than any other country. That kind of makes me shiver because it really shows that maybe that first 3.3 we spent was pretty wasteful, right? We bailed out a lot of companies that maybe could have gone to borrow or sold common stock or whatever. The things that Europe and Asia, at least not everywhere, but a lot of their countries, they just said, we're telling our citizens to stay home. We're sending them money. Everybody's going to be even for this month and next month and next month. And now in hindsight, that looks like a cheaper option. So I don't know. Again, it's a proposal. We're going to have some negotiations, give and take. But my strong suspicion is we're going to have more stimulus. And then, oh, by the way, little wrinkle in Biden's proposal, that's step one of a two-step plan, right? His second plan is infrastructure. He's going to do this. What does he call it? He calls the American Rescue Plan. That's the 1.9 trillion. And then he's going to do another couple of trillion on infrastructure. So, man, we are going to be spending a lot of money.
Okay. Well, there you go. So lots of money coming in the economy. I want to ask you, we got two more things to just talk about briefly, but I want to talk about, and I want Adrian to chime in on this as well. So Michael, specifically, so you've forecasted and we agree that there's an anticipation that at least for California and the major metros, we're going to see appreciation. We're going to see a boom. We're going to see where a lot of buyers coming off the shelf, buying, a lot of sellers who want to relocate and reposition. And we also talked about the fact that we see equity growing. Mm-hmm. Based on the interest rates, based on everything we've just talked about, do you still see it in that same light?
I'll say this: if the 10-year note gets to 2% by, say, the summer, call it June, I think that will ratchet down some appreciation. I don't think we go negative. We certainly don't see a crash. But, lots of states were reporting 13, 14% appreciation last year. Most of that was inventory constrained reasons, right? Demand stayed flat, it's just inventory got cut in half, so prices went up. I believe slow tick up in interest rate actually pulls demand off the sidelines, which, again, in a low supply market could, again, artificially goose prices. I think if we race from 2.75 to 4.25, especially in high price markets like California, it could really dent transactions and then dent. So I don't think we go negative, but instead of being, 8%, it might be 2 or 3. It's all on how fast. Like if we get to 2% on the 10-year by June, watch out. But if it's December, it's a slow walk.
Got it. Love it. Adrian?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, if I look at here just in Orange County alone, I mean, we have people that were buying in Aliso Viejo that are now able to come coastal. I can easily see that shifting. However, I'm not seeing, if I look at just my coastal market, if I'm looking at anything above $1 million, right, I'm seeing, and I don't know where this is coming from, and I'm still doing more investigation on it, but I'm seeing more cash offers than I am financed offers. I guess when I'm seeing a lot of people from big cities. We're seeing a lot of big city, high money individuals coming to Dana Point. They're coming to San Clemente. Dana Point's going through a whole regentrification right now. So that whole thing is changing. I see in Dana Point alone, from when I first got here, where the neighbor was selling for 800, they just sold for 1.6. And it's interesting. The same house. They didn't do anything to it. And that's, that's what has, I don't have enough data to figure that out yet. I haven't gone down I haven't learned enough to figure out where that's coming from. And maybe Michael, you can touch on that, but if we do see the spike in interest rate to 4.25, I do see those people going back inland. I see the people who were buying in Dana Point going back to Aliso, going back into the inland markets where they first were originally at.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. What you're seeing now is, first and foremost, you can't fight the Fed has never been more true, right? So you have a lot of people that have had very great stock market wealth created this year. And a lot of people that I know that have significant liquid wealth are very nervous where we are today. So a lot of people that I know at that stage are paying cash for houses. They're like, I'm gonna put it over there. I'm not going to put it at the whim of the market. We're just going to leave it there. And a lot of people that are a lot of urban flight, right? If if you have water, i.e. coastal, you're freaking a magnet for the 1% or even the top 5%, because you have something there that you and the family could go do. It's entertainment, right? You don't need to go to a movie. You don't need to do this. You just go run on the beach. So you're seeing places like that. And the same thing goes if you're investing out of state, like lakes. It's the same idea. Right? The coast is special. But if you have water, you have something that is of value in an environment like we are today.
Spot on. I love it.
I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap on. I know we talked a little bit about, health and wealth, and here we are in the new year. I want to encourage, I know a lot of the people that watch, a lot of people are doing the 75 hard challenge, the physical challenge. I know people, new year, new life, restarting, and just talking about, your why and purpose and freedom, Michael.
Yeah, when I went back, one thing I always do at the end of the year, probably like most of you, is I reflect on the year. And in 2020, the greatest thing that it taught me, and it's sad to say this, I'm 48, it was 48 in 2020, was tomorrow's not promised to anyone. And no day reminded me that more than the day in January when I was in Taiwan with my family, having a great old time, just being tourists. And my wife wakes me up and goes, Kobe Bryant died. I'm like, I was talking about Kobe Bryant at dinner yesterday so it was like a unifying thing, right? Basketball. And, we later learned that he tragically, with 7 other folks, I believe, lost life in that helicopter crash. And I wasn't the same all year, frankly. It was like, he won an Academy Award after being arguably one of the top 3 or 4 basketball players ever. Talk about a second career, writing children's books. He had so much more to give, and it was gone. And, as somebody who's trying to give the rest of his life, it just reminds me, it's just, man, just appreciate today, because tomorrow's promised to no one.
Yeah, it's so good. That is so good. I think about Kobe often, especially with that, right? Especially at 4 a.m. is what gets me. It's like when I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m., I remember Kobe would be up at 4 a.m. right now.
Yeah, he'd already be shooting 1,000 shots at 4 a.m.
Exactly. He's like, get up.
Yeah, he had a full sweat on by 4 a.m.
So good.
I love it. So for those of you that don't know, follow Michael Zuber. He's at One Rental at a Time. Follow Adrian Hernandez. He's everywhere. Instagram, YouTube. We're developing the Squad Up YouTube page as well. Michael has a great YouTube channel, One Rental at a Time. Tons of great content, tons of great news. Honestly, I laugh. I always tell Michael, I don't even watch regular news anymore. I just watch, and if there's something important going on, I know he's going to talk about it, and then we'll summarize it on a Friday. So thank you for that, Michael. Thank you, Adrian, for your guys' time. This has been great. Thank you all, everybody, for watching.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, T.Y.